Why read Quran? Part 21. Social justice promotes the concept of social justice and caring for the less fortunate. Point 1. Encouragement of charity, zakat and sadaqah. The Quran mandates zakat, obligatory charity, and encourages sadaqah, voluntary charity, as key pillars of social justice. These practices distribute wealth to those in need, reducing poverty and promoting a more equitable society. Social justice in Islam, promoting equity and caring for the less fortunate. Encouragement of charity, zakat and sadaqah. Islam emphasizes social justice as a core principle, encouraging its followers to care for the less fortunate and ensure fairness in society. Zakat, obligatory charity. This is a mandatory charitable contribution that Muslims are required to give annually, calculated as a specific percentage, typically 2.5% of their surplus wealth. Zakat ensures a systematic redistribution of wealth, supporting those in financial need, such as the poor, orphans, and widows, and addressing societal inequalities. Sadaqah, voluntary charity. Beyond the obligation of zakat, Islam encourages voluntary acts of giving, known as sadaqah. This can take many forms, including financial help, providing food or shelter, or even acts of kindness and support. Sadaqah fosters compassion, strengthens community bonds, and promotes a culture of empathy and care. These practices reduce poverty, prevent the accumulation of excessive wealth by a few, and promote a more balanced and equitable society. By integrating charity into the fabric of daily life, Islam seeks to ensure that no one is left behind and that the vulnerable are cared for. Point 2. Condemnation of exploitation. The Quran condemns exploitation, warning against unfair financial practices such as usury, interest, and fraud. By encouraging fair economic transactions, the Quran seeks to prevent the exploitation of the vulnerable, promoting economic justice. To explain this point further, social justice. This highlights the Quran's emphasis on creating a just society where the needs of the underprivileged are met. It promotes values such as compassion, charity, and equitable distribution of wealth. Social justice involves supporting those in poverty, ensuring their basic needs are fulfilled, and fostering a sense of community responsibility to uplift the less fortunate. Condemnation of exploitation. The Quran strictly prohibits practices that take advantage of others. This includes usury, interest, charging excessive interest. Riba is discouraged because it exploits people, especially those in financial difficulty. Fraud, dishonest practices like cheating or deception in trade are condemned. By promoting transparency and fairness in economic dealings, the Quran establishes a framework to protect vulnerable groups from being exploited. This approach encourages economic justice by ensuring fair opportunities for all and reducing financial inequalities in society. In essence, these teachings aim to build a society based on fairness, empathy, and mutual respect, fostering harmony and reducing social disparities. Point 3. Care for orphans and widows. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes the care of orphans and widows, who are often among the most vulnerable. This emphasis fosters a sense of responsibility to protect those who cannot provide for themselves, ensuring they are treated with respect and given support. Care for orphans and widows. Orphans and widows are specifically highlighted in the Quran as groups needing special attention and care. These individuals are often vulnerable because they lack the traditional family structures that provide financial and emotional support. The Quran repeatedly calls upon society to provide financial support, ensuring that orphans and widows have access to resources and do not face poverty. protect their rights, safeguarding their property and inheritance from being misused or taken away by others. Treat them with kindness and dignity, creating a nurturing environment where they are respected and not subjected to further hardship or neglect. By emphasizing the importance of caring for orphans and widows, the Quran fosters a sense of collective responsibility within the community. This teaching encourages individuals to look beyond their own needs and actively contribute to the welfare of others, ensuring that the most vulnerable members of society are supported and valued. This approach aligns with broader principles of compassion, equity, and justice in Islamic teachings. Point 4. Promotion of equality. The Quran teaches that all humans are equal in the sight of Allah, regardless of race, ethnicity, or social status. This guidance promotes social harmony, urging believers to treat everyone with respect and fairness, fostering unity across diverse communities. Promotion of equality. The Quran emphasizes that all human beings are created equal and are judged by their actions and piety, not by superficial distinctions such as race, ethnicity, or social status. This teaching is rooted in verses like, "Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you," Surah Al-Hujurat 49-13, which underscores the importance of character over privilege or background. Respect for diversity. The Quran acknowledges that people are created into different nations and tribes to foster understanding and cooperation, not division or superiority. This message challenges racism, classism, and other forms of discrimination. Fostering unity. By teaching that everyone is equal in the eyes of Allah, the Quran encourages believers to build harmonious relationships and treat one another with fairness and respect, irrespective of social or cultural differences. Practical application. This principle is evident in Islamic practices such as prayer, salah, where people of all backgrounds stand shoulder to shoulder, symbolizing equality before God. By promoting equality, the Quran lays the foundation for a just and united society where individuals are valued for their moral character and contributions, creating an environment of mutual respect and shared humanity. Point 5. Emphasis on fair trade and honest business. The Quran promotes fair and honest business practices, prohibiting deceit and emphasizing integrity. This guidance supports ethical economic interactions that prevent injustices, ensuring everyone is treated fairly in business transactions. Emphasis on fair trade and honest business. Prohibition of deceit. The Quran strongly condemns dishonesty in trade, such as cheating, fraud, and misrepresentation. For example, it warns against those who give less than due in measurement and weight, stating, "Woe to those who give less than due, who, when they take a measure from people, take in full. But if they give by measure or by weight to them, they cause loss." Surah Al-Mutaffifin 83-1-3. Integrity in transactions. Honest business practices are seen as an act of worship, and believers are encouraged to maintain transparency, fairness, and justice in all dealings. Trustworthiness is highly valued in Islam, and traders who act with integrity are promised blessings in their work. Prevention of exploitation. By advocating for fair trade, the Quran ensures that no party is unjustly exploited. This protects both buyers and sellers, particularly vulnerable individuals who might otherwise be taken advantage of in an unfair system. This emphasis on fairness in commerce promotes economic stability and trust within the community. It ensures that wealth is circulated justly and that ethical practices are prioritized, contributing to a socially just and equitable society. Point 6. Establishment of justice in legal matters. The Quran urges believers to establish justice in all legal matters, promoting fairness regardless of personal interests or biases. This principle ensures that everyone receives equal treatment under the law, supporting a just society. Establishment of justice in legal matters. Fairness above personal interests. The Quran emphasizes the need for impartiality in legal decisions, even if it goes against one's own self, family, or personal interests. This is evident in the verse, "O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it be against yourselves or parents and relatives." Surah An-Nisa 4-135. Equality before the law. The Quran stresses that everyone, regardless of their social status, wealth, or power, should be treated equally in legal matters. There is no favoritism or discrimination in the application of justice. Elimination of bias. The Quran discourages prejudice or partiality that could lead to unfair decisions. Instead, it calls for decisions based on truth and evidence, ensuring that justice is served for all parties involved. Protection of the vulnerable. By upholding justice, the Quran ensures the protection of those who might otherwise be marginalized or disadvantaged, ensuring that their voices are heard and their rights preserved. This principle of justice in legal matters fosters trust in the judicial system and contributes to a fair and orderly society where everyone is held accountable and treated with equality and respect. It also reinforces the idea that justice is a divine command and a collective responsibility. Point 7. Responsibility to oppose oppression. The Quran encourages believers to stand against oppression and to defend the rights of the oppressed. This guidance instills a duty to fight injustice, whether it is personal or societal, ensuring that no one is wronged. Responsibility to oppose oppression. Standing against injustice. The Quran calls on believers to actively oppose any form of oppression, whether it occurs at an individual, societal, or systemic level. This includes speaking out against wrongs and taking action to protect the rights of those who are being mistreated. Defending the oppressed. Believers are encouraged to act as protectors of those who cannot defend themselves. For instance, the Quran states, "And what is the matter with you that you do not fight in the cause of Allah and for the oppressed among men, women, and children?" Surah An-Nisa 4-75. This highlights the duty to intervene when others are suffering injustice. Condemnation of oppression. Oppression is viewed as a grave sin in Islam. The Quran warns against acts that harm others or deprive them of their rights, whether through physical force, social marginalization, or economic exploitation. Personal and societal duty. Opposing oppression is not limited to personal responsibility, but extends to collective societal action. Believers are urged to create systems and institutions that promote justice and protect the vulnerable from harm. By emphasizing the duty to oppose oppression, the Quran cultivates a proactive sense of justice and accountability within individuals and communities. This guidance ensures that society remains vigilant against abuse of power and that everyone is committed to upholding the dignity and rights of all people. Point 8. Encouragement of kindness and compassion. Social justice in the Quran is tied to compassion, urging believers to show kindness to those who are disadvantaged. This compassionate approach helps foster an environment of empathy and support for the less fortunate. Encouragement of kindness and compassion. A central teaching, the Quran repeatedly emphasizes the importance of kindness and mercy in addressing social inequalities. Believers are encouraged to help those in need, including the poor, orphans, widows, and strangers. Acts of compassion are seen as a reflection of faith and a means to strengthen the bonds of community. Practical application of kindness. Kindness is not limited to charity. It also includes how people speak, behave, and interact with one another. Simple acts, like treating someone with respect or offering a kind word, can make a significant difference in uplifting others. A spirit of empathy. The Quran calls believers to place themselves in the shoes of the less fortunate, fostering a deep sense of empathy. This is reflected in verses like, "And they give food in spite of love for it to the needy, the orphan, and the captive," Surah Al-Insan 76-8, showcasing selflessness and care for others. Transforming society through compassion. By encouraging compassion, the Quran seeks to create an environment where the community actively supports its weaker members, helping to reduce suffering and build a culture of care and mutual support. This focus on kindness and compassion ensures that social justice is pursued not only through laws and systems, but also through the daily actions and attitudes of individuals, creating a more inclusive and supportive society. Point 9. Respect for the rights of workers. The Quran promotes the fair treatment of workers, encouraging believers to pay fair wages and to ensure that workers are not overburdened. This guidance supports workers' rights, ensuring they are treated with dignity and respect. Respect for the rights of workers. Fair wages. The Quran and Islamic teachings stress that workers must be compensated fairly for their labor. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, reinforced this by saying, "Pay the worker his wages before his sweat dries." Hadith, Sahih Ibn Majah, highlighting the importance of timely and fair payment. Prevention of exploitation. Workers should not be exploited through unfair practices, such as withholding wages, underpayment, or excessive workloads. The Quran calls for fairness in all dealings, including labor, to ensure that workers are not burdened unjustly. Dignity and respect. Beyond financial compensation, the Quran advocates treating workers with respect and humanity. Employers are encouraged to consider their workers' well-being, recognizing them as integral members of society deserving of honor and care. Shared responsibility. Labor is seen as a cooperative effort, where both employers and employees have mutual responsibilities. Employers should provide suitable working conditions, while workers are encouraged to perform their duties with honesty and dedication. By promoting workers' rights, the Quran establishes a framework for equitable and ethical labor relations. This guidance ensures that workers are not only compensated fairly but also treated with the dignity and respect that are essential for a just and harmonious society.